My name's Hayley. I head up our IT and tech recruitment at Core, and as part of our female leadership series, I'm here interviewing Olivia Fitzgerald, the MD of Feed It Back. Just a little bit about me. I have been at Core 10 years now, celebrated 10 years this year, and during that time have, well, the running joke is I've pretty much recruited everything within the business, and have landed on my feet looking after the technology and IT side of things. And that means I get to work with great candidates, great clients rather, on the technology side of things to do with hospitality, which is how I'm working with Olivia. Hi, Olivia, how are you?
Hi, Hayley. Yeah, really good. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. I guess, just wanted to have a bit of a chat and kind of find out a bit more to start with about your journey, how you've kind of got to where you are now.
I guess I sort of fell accidentally into the world of hospitality tech, really, when I was about, I worked in hospitality businesses directly when I graduated from university, and absolutely loved it. Found that it was an incredible path to learning about everything from kind of managing people to I found actually moving forward in an organization and getting management skills happened really quickly. And from there, my first job in sold online bookings, sort of way back in 2003, when most restaurants didn't have websites, and web-based software was completely, well, kind of a bit unusable because everything was on a dial-up connection. So it was kind of an interesting product to sell that relied on a website and a good broadband connection. But it was an amazing experience. I started my career in hospitality tech, I guess, selling the concept of online bookings, which was really quite a new thing at the time, and very it had the potential to sort of really change customers' businesses and just the way that guests interacted with them in general, which I think I was really lucky to kind of land there, because the business went from 4 people. I was the 4th employee and the first salesperson, and it went from 4 people to 300 people over the sort of 9 years when I was there.
Yeah.
So we built the business, several rounds of venture capital funding. Eventually, the business was sold to Michelin. So it was a really amazing growth story, I suppose, of an understanding how sort of technology and SaaS, I suppose, particularly could, how you could go on that kind of growth journey with that sort of business, which coming out of hospitality, I didn't really understand anything about that. But I think actually I was very lucky to be in one of the first UK businesses in hospitality tech that got VC backing, really. So it went very fast, and that kind of rapid acceleration, trying all sorts of things, and to be in the sales so I kind of grew up in the sales and sort of commercial side of things. Ended up being the sort of heading up the UK part of the business, and then I went on to work for Zonal, which is the UK's biggest hospitality EPOS provider. So I've done 3 different roles while I was there. Mostly, I guess, to do with sales and marketing. Most recently, chief sales and marketing officer, but really to do with sort of bringing lots of additional products into the world of EPOS, where you've got your sort of transactional data, and so linking that to marketing products or sort of products that can key into that data and build a very rich world of who your customers are and what they're spending and how they're behaving. So providing that sort of, I think the holy grail for most hospitality businesses is this sort of joined up tech, so that you're not having to end up with 20 different tech suppliers, none of which talk to each other, which is the complete nightmare. So that, I think, from there, I've kind of just moved into the MD role at Feed It Back, which is kind of a smaller business, again on a kind of rapid growth sort of path, and I guess another great example of how technology can help businesses to kind of save time, make more money, become more profitable, be more efficient, which I think is, for me, is super, is a super exciting, to be in a position to really help businesses to do something that's quite game changing, I think
Yeah.
is always exciting. So yeah,
Yeah.
so that's me in a nutshell.
It's so funny because when you said about 2003, that was when I moved to London and was general manager of a bar, and the difference that I've seen over the last few years, everything was written down on bits of paper. We, like you said, the dial-up. If someone was on the internet downstairs in the cellar, you couldn't use the credit card machine,
Yeah.
and the changes has been incredible, especially over the last few years. I mean, I remember back then, I was probably, as a general manager, there probably weren't many other female general, thinking of all of the bars that were along the same sort of area, probably not very many female general managers. Have you sort of come up against any challenges as a female MD at your level, or is there any advice you can give to anyone kind of wanting to go to that level?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. I mean, I think I don't know. My experience in hospitality was very much that it was very meritocratic. So I think although
Yeah.
there is a sort of there is a not so great tendency for there to be fewer women as you get sort of
Yeah.
higher up the scale, which I think is something we all need to think about tackling. But I found it very level playing field at the entry level certainly, and that was got lots of opportunity. Always feel very grateful to hospitality for that. Um, I think in the world of tech, it is extremely male dominated. Does you know that experience. Um, I mean, I think I've been fortunate in London that I definitely it's been a hub of hospitality tech. I think really, and there've been loads of, I mean, not just London, but the UK generally. There've been some really amazing tech businesses coming through, and I think I've had loads of opportunities, and I feel really lucky to have had them. I mean, I've certainly most of the time been the only woman in the boardroom, and I think that's on the exec team or
Yeah.
and that is I guess you get used to being a little bit of a different voice sometimes, and I think I've had to you know stand my ground a bit with those classic things where you make a point and everybody ignores it, and then someone else makes it 10 minutes later who happens to be male, and they all go, oh yeah. I mean that, I guess that's kind of standard stuff in a way. But having said that, I've worked with a great bunch of really successful, really supportive men and women who've given me sort of every opportunity. So in a way, from personally, I can't complain, but I think you probably just have to screen out some not so free behavior along the way. But I think I'm really encouraged to see how awareness is changing. I think in the last sort of
Yeah.
5 years or so, it really feels like women are more confident to kind of speak up and expect to get support, and companies are more aware that they're going to need to provide that support, and proactively thinking about how do we get more women into the boardroom, how do we onto exec teams or into middle management. And I think that's really healthy, because just I suppose just seeing, and I've always kind of felt a bit like one of the reasons to be the even if you are the only woman on an exec team, one of the reasons to be there, even if it's uncomfortable sometimes, is to
Yeah.
model that for other women who are just coming into the industry, or new starters or whatever. For them, if they see a woman there, then they're gonna, that makes all the difference, doesn't it? It's like, well, okay, maybe I could be there. So I think
If
that's
you see it, you can be it.
so I think it really, that
Yeah.
really does help, doesn't it? And I think, and I mean, I think there's still a lot more to do in terms of all kinds of diversity, not just sort of gender sort of
Yeah.
equality, but having a representation of the population in the UK, kind of at the highest level. I think is we by no means kind of won that battle yet, and need to really proactively work on it.
I suppose
But I think
especially in hospitality, because it's across the board that people are using it, isn't it? It's
yeah,
not.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, and I think if you think businesses, you think about the argument for having proper representation of all the different voices in the population at a high level. I mean, hospitality needs to cater for everyone, doesn't it? I mean, it's absolutely something, an industry that needs to understand what everybody's thinking. So I think, whether it's younger people or different ethnicities or women, or it's just absolutely important to have to have those different voices in the boardroom, so and on the exec team. So I think it's I don't think we're there yet. If you look at the stats, we're clearly not there yet. But I think there is a lot more discussion and proactive kind of activity to try to move us in the right direction. I think the culture. I think if you look at the culture of some businesses, like if you look at the pub industry, for example, in the UK in the last 5 years, discussion has really changed. It's really there's some much more inclusive, much more sort of open-minded discussion and desire to open up the culture, I suppose. And I think that's super positive. I think there's some really strong leadership in that sector right now, and it's really impressive.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I know that from the sort of International Women's Day events that we've had and other sort of female leadership things, listening to some of those senior women speak about their experiences. A lot of them have mentioned sort of mentorship and that they've had people that are kind of on their side guiding them through and things like that. And I know this is slightly kind of off topic, but have you had any mentorship or mentored anyone?
Yeah, actually, well, both. In the last 5 years or so, I suppose. And I think I was a bit late to the party on this one, really. But I think because I guess I've just always been working flat out and in my own little bubble in a way. But I think about 5 years ago, I really tried to think about like how can I just kind of see what other people are doing a bit more broadly. And I think both mentoring and being a mentor, being mentored, are incredibly valuable in terms of, I mean, just opens your eyes to all kinds of things that you wouldn't otherwise think about. And being challenged, I mean, certainly I find having a mentor is such a great challenge. I mean, super privileged that to be mentored by Anne Elliott, and she is just amazing. And I think women like, when you see women like Anne and so, some of the people that were at your conference, for example, sort of it does kind of it paves the way. You kind of the input from people like that is just phenomenal. And also just hearing doing stuff as a mentor. I think seeing the kind of things that people are playing with when they're just coming into the industry as well, I think is it's so important. I think I would encourage people to start early with all of that, because it's just it just having a community and makes you feel stronger, doesn't it? So I think we've got a lot more of that going on now. I think when I was in my 20s, I just accepted that I was going to be a bit isolated. Now it doesn't feel so much like that, does it? So it's good.
I guess everyone's now more open and more people are more open to talking about their feelings and all things like that. And I think now it's kind of okay to say, well, actually I need a cheerleader and I need those people in my life that are going to lift me up. And I think it's just not something we considered however many years ago.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I went to a conference about 6 months ago where they talked about the leadership of how's the landscape changing with technology, sort of the way technology is changing the world and things like AI and all that kind of stuff, and which leadership skills are going to be the most important as going into the future. And lots of the predictions were around the sort of emotional intelligence side of things just becoming more and more important in the mix. And I think, if you'd said that to me 10 years ago, I think I would have been a bit like, oh God, better not talk about that. But now it's, like you say, now that's being openly sort of, I guess we're kind of proactively looking for that in leadership, aren't we, as a really fundamental skill to have. So I think that's a really, really interesting shift.
Yeah, and I mean, I suppose you could say that I guess it's stereotypical, but women do come with those skills more often. I think those kind of softer skills. So hopefully that's kind of paving the way to even things out a bit.
yeah. I think it's whether it's yeah. I don't know. I mean, I've certainly met plenty of men that have those skills in
Of course.
abundance too. So I wouldn't want to just kind of claim
No.
them just for women, but I think that's right. I think that
Yeah.
often it's something that female candidates
Yeah.
can be great with. So
Yeah, yeah. And just when it comes to you mentioned about sort of changes within the industry and that AI side of things. I mean, what are your thoughts on that, and what do you kind of see happening soon that's going to be new on the tech side?
so I mean, unquestionably, AI is going to be the biggest step change, isn't it? And I
Yeah,
think in oh gosh, I mean, not just in tech, not just in hospitality tech, but almost in any walk of life, in any sort of field of work. I think it's just gonna have an absolutely enormous impact. And I think there's loads to be excited about there. I mean, when you think about like a business like Feed It Back, for example, which is extremely there's a huge volume of data, but if you're not careful, that can become sort of like data wallpaper, I suppose I've heard it described as. And but I think AI can really help to when it comes to hospitality businesses don't have often they people are very stretched for time. They're trying to do a
yeah,
million things at once. The ability to pinpoint the data that matters and present it in the right format at the right time to the right people. I think that's going to be incredibly useful in terms of real world applications of that data. So I think there's numerous ways that AI will help us to make technology more productive within
yeah,
hospitality businesses. I mean, do you think, in a way, coming back to the theme about people and emotional intelligence, I think I've had lots of conversations with people recently about the importance of people and tech and how they work together.
hmm,
And I think often you still hear quite often from people in the hospitality world, obviously not in a business like Feed It Back because it's all about technology, but people in hospitality will often talk about technology still, even today, almost as on the one hand, you've got people and great customer service, and
hmm,
on the other hand, you've got technology. And I just fundamentally think that's absolutely the wrong way of looking at it, because
hmm,
I think you've got to think, like, if you're anytime you're implementing a new piece of technology, you've got to be thinking about how are my people going to understand this technology and know and implement it really, really well, and how are they going to go on that journey. And people don't just pick up a piece of tech and run with it generally. I mean, or at least in hospitality they don't, and I know I don't. It's like
yeah,
I think we have to be more human about technology. We have to understand that it's behavior and technology together that can make some real magic kind of happen. But if you ignore the behavioral aspect, then any technology
mm,
project is gonna fall flat on its face, basically, if you're not thinking about the people. So for me, that's a really big theme, and I'm kind of wondering, like, always sort of thinking about, well, how can we make things more intuitive, more,
mm,
make more sense from a people point of view, make it
mm,
make it seem emotionally like relevant to them. So
mm,
that's
mm.
that's a good challenge for the future, I think.
It
We've
was
definitely
it,
not haven't cracked that one yet. I hasten to add.
it, it was fascinating at the last Hostech. I met with someone that I'd spoken to the year before, and I said it's so funny that the year before she was on stage talking about robotics, and that was something that was coming up a lot. And I said, imagine, like last year, we never would have thought that almost everyone on stage was talking about AI this year, and like how
Yeah,
it had changed just in the space of a year.
yeah. It's definitely sort of it does feel like one of those big moments, doesn't it? Where and I
Mm.
guess we're I mean, I suppose the last one having been the when the internet sort of really, really kind of
Yeah, yeah,
became a mass tool. But I think we're starting to really see people getting to grips with it and understand how
yeah,
it's going to benefit their businesses. And I
yeah,
think that's really exciting. And I mean, I think it is going to change things massively, isn't it?
yeah,
It's going to be, and we don't yet understand all the ways that it's going to
yeah,
change things, and it's
yeah,
scary in some ways, but at the same time, it's also, I think think when you think about the time saving, I think at best it can enable us in hospitality to just not do a lot of those super labor intensive things that stop you from doing the bits that the real kind of customer service, or for us,
Yeah.
insight bits that you really want to be spending your
Yeah.
time on. So that's
Yeah.
what I'm excited about when it
Yeah.
comes to AI.
Yeah. Speaking of exciting, feed it
Ah,
back.
yes.
Tell us more. So has it been a few months now, or
3 months. So three
3
months
months?
in. So I have been telling people that asked me recently, I've been saying I am definitely I'm at the stage where my head has exploded and I'm like piecing it back together again.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm sort of I think it's a business with so much potential because it's I think a combination of sort of really deep hospitality expertise along with guess the ability to collecting, whether it's online, sort of what people are saying about your brand online, or whether it's direct feedback coming into the business. But I love the idea that actually what is the real potential of that is to provide this kind of instant insight into what's working and what's not working in your business. So actually I see it in some ways, I see it less as a feedback aggregator, which I think seems pretty boring in some ways.
Yeah.
It's much more like it's a control panel to run your business with, because you know, something that gives you lets you know what your customers are thinking instantly when you've made changes, or when you know, whether it's new menu items, whether it's price changes, whether it's a new member of staff. You know, I think that's it's almost like, you know, the eyes and ears on your business as you if you do have, you know, if you've got multiple sites and you can't be everywhere at once, it's that sort of, I think that's and I think then the challenge, so I think that's an incredible opportunity to help businesses run better and make more
Yeah.
money, be more, and understand their customers better. And I think the real challenge is then how to take that massive volume of data and make it foolproof to find the bits that matter. Because I think that's and that was, I suppose, for a lot of data orientated businesses, that is the challenge. But I think it's just taking that volume of data and turning it into kind of the true sort of insight that can, you know, all hospitality businesses are strapped for time. They don't have, you know, they don't have time to be mining through the data to find the things that matter to them. So I think that's our challenge. And then, you know, I'd love I mean, we work with loads of great brands already, like sort of the lounge business, Cozy Club, TGI Fridays. I mean, the whole kind of multitude of, you know, Gusto, loads of brilliant brands. But I would love to be the UK's kind of go-to multi-site insight business for insight and feedback. I think that would, you know, there's plenty more to be done there, I think. So I think the future is, you know, there's really exciting potential there, and so much more we could do if you start thinking about, you know, that the goal is to be this, you know, to provide as much crucial insight in the most concise possible way to hospitality businesses, then it's very exciting to think about all the different ways we could do that. So yeah, tons of opportunity, and it's just yeah, it's just like which bits to go after first, really, which is exciting.
Any exciting nuggets of things coming up that you can tell us about with Feed It Back?
Yeah, so we are I mean, I guess starting to use AI within the platform to I guess lots of things where there's um, a lot of data coming in. But one good example is when so when customers leave reviews, and if they go, we sort of like people to go through a survey process, so that if there's anything they don't like, they're sharing that directly with the business rather than necessarily publishing it online. But then if it's a good review, then actually using AI to take the details of the survey and publish it to whichever, you know, whether it's Google or TripAdvisor or whatever.
Yeah.
I think like joining the dots there and just making it super simple for someone. So, I mean, sounds like a simple thing, but rather than having to retype the elements of your survey that you've just completed on Google, which probably no one's going to do because it's just a bit of a hassle. But if you can immediately, if you just at a touch of a button say, okay, take all the things I put in my survey and publish them on Google, assuming that it's a nice one, then I think that's just that sort of promoting, helping businesses to sort of promote themselves online in just an easier way. We know from recent sort of research that we've conducted I think it shows it's nearly 70% of people will look at Google reviews before they make a booking. And what matters most to them is, and so that's by far the most influential online channel. So it's so vital to businesses. I know that it's not news to anyone, but what is most important to them is how recent the reviews are. So if you have a look at a restaurant, let's say, and the last review was from months ago, then you're immediately going to question whether that's somewhere that you want to go. Obviously, seeing a good review, but that's what customers said was the number one concern for them, was like, how recent is the review? So the need to, I guess, make it really easy for businesses and customers to sort of leave those reviews and to interact around them. So I think that's one good example of how AI can really help with just making that so easy that it's just, the more we can do to increase the volume and the kind of frequency of that kind of feedback online, the better it's going to be for our customers.
And I know, but one thing that I've always thought about the feedback is that I think because we're British, and we're not great at complaining about things, are we? And I think, if things are sort of slightly mediocre, we probably just don't say anything, and then you're perhaps losing out on loyalty. Whereas actually, it kind of gives people an opportunity to say, all right, well, there's some areas here that we can kind of fix. Because I'm probably guilty of it.
No, I was talking to some at sort of an event a couple of days ago, and we were talking about Britishness and the way British people behave in restaurants, and it's definitely that whole kind of, and then like 1 star on Google, and it's and I suppose that's one of the things that can really help with that. It's like, if somebody's a bit disgruntled, I mean, unfortunately we often don't say something at the time, do we? So it's like, but giving them the opportunity to say, to let the brand know, or the restaurant or pub know directly that they had it, that something wasn't so great, rather than going straight to Google. Just, I think ideally, if you can get that feedback coming directly to you, then you're going to learn a lot more, and you're going to manage your reputation a lot more effectively as well. So yes, it's a funny one. British people and complaining, we just don't do it very well, do we?
No, it's that okay? Yeah, it's fine. I think it's because sometimes you could have someone that's really lovely that's serving you, and something's not quite right, but you don't feel it's their fault, and therefore you don't want to say anything. So I suppose it just gives you an opportunity to say something without being a keyboard warrior and, like you said, going straight on the Google reviews.
I suppose also making sure that feedback goes to the right people who are going to be able to do something about it. I mean, I always do try and say something when I'm in a restaurant and it's not great. And like, I was in somewhere the other day, and then I had some ice cream for pudding, and it was really salty, but like properly salty, like it tasted like seawater. And I told and there was like a young guy sort of serving the table, and I said, look, just to make you aware, the ice cream's like really too salty. And know what they were, just kind of like a rabbit in the headlights, kind of like, oh, okay, right, well, sorry. And I just thought, well, I bet that feedback's gone no further, actually. And someone somewhere in this organization will really care that that's not that it's not good. But so I think that it's kind of I suppose that's a good case for capturing it in a system that gets that feedback to the right people who can do something about it. But
amazing. Well, I mean, I love working with you, so really appreciate you jumping on the call today and chatting. And yeah, hopefully we will carry on working with each other for a long time. I mean,
Definitely.
I think unless there's anything else you want to add, I think we'll probably wrap up now. And
No, I can't think of anything. But thank you so much for the opportunity and
no, it's
obviously
been
for
lovely.
promoting female leadership. That's always good to
Absolutely.
talk about.
Always. Well, thank you so much. And for anyone watching, I think this is probably going to go out on our YouTube channel. Yes, we've got a YouTube channel now.
Oh,
And apparently, but there's more videos on there on our female leadership series and on diversity and all sorts of other things. So check it out. Olivia, thank you so much. It was lovely speaking to you, and I will chat to you again soon.
thanks, Hayley.
Thanks. Bye. Bye.